Very good evening, everybody, and welcome to our third session of the IBAV, Ibero-American Voices, second edition. As we all know, this is the only poetry festival organized in India, which focuses practically on the Ibero-American languages that are spoken in Spain and in Iberian Peninsula of Spain and in America, in the continent of America. And and we also try to, this is the only platform to for all our practicing poets and publishers and other people related to poetry to interact directly with writers and publishers of these countries. And today we have a very special session, because we will talk about organizing poetry events and publishing poetry in this COVID scenario, in this pandemic scenario.
हाँ
And,
आ गया
and of course, we will talk about some of our experiences. For this, we have a great list of panelists today. We have Timo Berger. Timo Berger is from Germany, and that is a strange connection, you might say, just because we just said it is a connection between the Ibero-American countries and India. But we have an infiltrator. We have a great creative infiltrator coming from Germany, whose brainchild is Latinale, a poetry festival, the only Spanish language poetry festival organized in Germany. Not only that, he is the pioneer of behind these kind of poetry festival all across the world. And I somehow snatched the idea from him, and I am completely in debt with him to give me that idea to organize a festival like that. Timo basically is a poet and translator, and he became interested in Spanish language and Spanish literature, and as a very as an active poet, he went to Argentina to study, and he fell in love with Argentina, I believe, and there he learned. He started his adventure with Spanish language and Spanish language literature. He currently directs that Latinale Poetry Festival, which was founded in 2004. And he also started in 2006, I'm sorry. In 2004, he co-directed another poetry festival in Buenos Aires. It's called Salida al Mar Poetry Festival. He translated many German authors to many Argentine authors and Spanish language authors to German language. And the second panelist here today is Lucia Trevino. Lucia is from Mexico. She's joining us, and it's for her, it's very early morning there, and she's joining us from Mexico, and she's a coordinator of Dharma Books. And it is a publisher based in Mexico City. She has experience in creating, writing, and editing texts, and in teaching within communication and literature fields. She has imparted various creation and expression workshops. Delta de Sol is her first book. Our third panelist today is Smriti Divte. She is from Bombay. She, along with the Marathi poet Hemant Divte, founded Abhidanantar, a magazine which is highly regarded in Marathi literary circles, and of course, Poetrywala, which was initially dedicated to Marathi poetry. Now it has become the refuge for most of the Indian poets who write in any language in India, including English. Again, a very warm welcome to all of you, to Timo, to Smriti, to Lucia, and thank you a lot. Thanks a lot for being with us. from different parts of the world. I would request Timo Berger to start sharing with us his experience and his adventures with poetry festivals.
Hello, guys and girls and everyone there, over there. Thank you, Shubro, for thinking in me. And I'm in a very crucial situation now at that particular moment. And it's a crucial situation for the Corona situation in Germany as well, because I think you can't hear it, but there is a helicopter in the air. I'm now in the center, the very center of Berlin, very close to the governmental district, where two things are happening at the same time. There is the Kanzlerin Angela Merkel, the head of the government. She is now talking about more restrictions, almost a kind of second lockdown. That would mean that no cultural, no sports event will take place during the next month of November. And at the same time, there are thousands of demonstrators from the cultural section, from people, curators, and also people who have dancing clubs, people who have organized musical events, and also people who organize circus events. And they are demonstrating that culture is also something which is very, very affected, and all the people who are engaged with it and were working in that section. So we have now these two things. I'm thinking all the time about that, you know. It reminds me to April and to March of this year, when we had the first lockdown. And as you said, we founded the festival in 2006, and this year is really very exceptional for the festival. We founded it with Rieke Bolte, which is an academic from the Freie University of Berlin, and now she is working in Columbia. And in April, we had always the idea of make different centers of the festival. We are based in Berlin, but we have events in other cities. And before it was easy to travel. Now it's impossible to travel. But we had planned for April this year, the second issue of the festival in Concepcion in Chile. And we had already everything organized. And then within 1 week, we had to, because of the lockdown, we had to move all the festival into the internet. From an analog, from a presential festival, we had to move everything in the internet. And this was really, in that way, very demanding for us, because it was the first time we did these kind of things. Now we are used to these Zoom and streaming, and all the authors, they have their webcam and they have their stable or unstable connections, but it's like an old relationship now. They know the errors of the other one, and so they can cope with. But in that particular moment, it was really kind of adventure in that way. Also, not only the technical issues, but also what kind of format functions in the Zoom reading. Are the people really following all the flow, all the discussion, all the poetry reading, or are they more looking about the errors, or are they checking something in internet, meanwhile listening to the sound of the voice of the poet? And also there were some experience with, for example, Instituto São Paulo, they did video poetry sessions, not Zoom, because it was more adequate to the format, yeah, to see on the internet. But I really want to, my main issue about this is we are gaining, with the virtuality, we are gaining audience in some way. We had, because we also recorded all the readings, and some of the readings had like more than 1,000 clicks or views and dozens of likes. and normally you have a poetry reading, you have 40, 50, the best moments you have 80, 90 persons listening to the poets, and you do all the production, you make all the translations, and if you have it in a virtual format or in a film, you can promote it to a vaster audience. But what is lacking, and I guess we have no answer till now to that question, is all that issue around the poetry reading, the meeting, the gathering, you know, and just even the smell of the event, and all the particularities. And I think that is really a big issue, because, and therefore I accepted this invitation to participate, also to listen how you are coping, or how you are dealing with these kind of issues, that the internet event is lacking so much dimensions of the real world meeting and poetry reading.
Mm-hmm. Can you tell us something about a little detail about your festival, to let us know about it in a little more detail? How was it in general? How was the response from the people in the pre-COVID era?
In the pre-corona era, we had always a selected number of poets, for sure, because we have to do all the production, we have to make a selection of the texts. We cannot be so spontaneous because we have to make the translations. It's not the same as in a poetry festival in Mexico. The poet can prepare the reading 1 hour before the reading. In our case, the poet has to prepare the reading 2 or 3 months before and enter in a dialogue with the translator and the curation of the festival. So we had like from 12 to 15, sometimes 20 poets, not that numbers like in America, where they have 150 or 200 poets in the festival, like Medellin. But this is always very useful to generate a platform. So we always conceive the festival in two ways. One was always for the German public, to translate the poetry from the actual contemporary poetry from Latin America and to present it in Germany, in some cities like Berlin, Hamburg, Munich, Cologne. And on the other way, we always thought about it would be nice if that poet from Mexico, let's say from Tijuana, would meet that poet from Tierra del Fuego. So normally they don't cross, but they meet up in Berlin in a hotel room, or doing some city walks together, because also the idea of our festival is to have only events in the evening, and during the day they have free time and they can connect and they can exchange a lot of issues. And we noticed that after our festivals, there were more invitations to other festivals, there were publications, there were translations. And so, yeah, that's a little bit the dynamics. We always had like this idea of giving a room, a space for these poets, being in Berlin or in Germany or in another place. And yeah, that is more or less the dynamics. We also, deriving from the festival, we made publications with editing houses, we programmed blogs, we made poetry films and stuff, like other projects around the festival. But yeah, I think that's the best description I could give to you.
Thank you, Timo. I would now like to request Lucia to talk about her adventures a little. How is Dharma Books, and how is it doing right now in this pandemic situation?
Yes, I was first thinking about what Timo was saying. And there's this book fair going on of Oaxaca right now that it's now virtual. And I was thinking that in time I haven't seen or listened to the conversations, but I've seen it later. And that's a good thing, because I think if the conversations remain on the internet, maybe you won't have an audience right in the present that is watching your presentations or your lectures, but you will have it later, and that will sort of accumulate during time, because when you do something that it's interesting and important, you will see on the long way the things that are being presented, and that was just well, I was sort of thinking of that in the editorial in Dharma Books. It has been, well, of course, difficult, but we have right now, we took the opportunity to convert our books to ebooks, something we didn't do before, because we appreciate so much the book in as an object. We didn't want it to have ebooks, but now this sort of forces to do it, and it was a good thing, because now the book can be read by many people who cannot actually buy it, not even on Amazon or something like that. And also that transition took us a while, so we haven't published as many books as the year before, which was a very, very fast year, a very productive year. We published 12 books, and we are a very small publisher. So this was an opportunity for us to make that transition, and also to focus on the other part of the publisher, which is making money. And we make money by accepting business or books by companies. They need to do books for universities, or and that budget, it's going into the publisher to make our books. So it's a good thing in a way, but it's a bad thing, because on this year until now, we have only published 3 books, and our calendar was about, I don't know, till today, we would have published, I guess, 10 books. So it's been a difference, but in a way, it's been an opportunity to make these other efforts.
Mm-hmm. Tell us, I have a curiosity about the name of your publisher. Dharma is a Sanskrit word. For us, it's our word. So what's can you tell us the history behind the name?
Yes, both associates, Raúl and Nicolás Cuellar, Raúl Aguayo and Nicolás Cuellar, they're both the owners of the publisher. They began with this 4 years ago, and they thought of Dharma as a pretty word, not a very, like, it was like more sort of intuition or attraction to the word, but the books that we publish are very are of literature. They are not from Buddhism or nothing like that, which some people will think they are Buddhist books, and now we're sort of making that the word, it's because of the well-being of the literature. So it's our it's just like the word is so powerful that in a way it has been very meaningful to have it as a name of a publisher.
Mm-hmm. So was it a little more people used to ask you a question about the name in Mexico?
Yes, yes. Last year in the book fair, the big book fair in Guadalajara, they were always thinking that it was a Buddhist publisher. Like, oh, so do you
India
have
was
books of?
India was the invited country, so it was all related to India.
Yes,
Got you
so
away from it.
they were looking for books of karma, right? No, but no, we were we only have like literature things. Yes, novels and short stories and essays and poems.
So this year is a difficult year for you because there are no book fairs and other things. So your dependence, you are completely now dependent on ebooks, that you want to say?
I wouldn't say like that because since a lot of people in the book circle don't see Amazon as a good thing, and we agree. We agree that is a very capitalism, very monopolic web and venture and business. But we have our books in Amazon and they're sold by there, and it's a very beneficial thing because we have been still making a very fluid commercial part with the books that we already have. But and we won't think the ebook is going to substitute that part, but there has been less publishing work this year because of the whole transition that we made. Yes.
Thank you, Lucia. Now I'll go to Smriti. Smriti, let's take us to Poetry Wala. And as we, just for our audience and for our fellow speakers here, Wala is a suffix to any word in India to mean that the seller. Poetry Wala is literally a poetry seller, a man or something that sells poetry. And we can add anything, like Timo can be a Spanish Wala who sells Spanish poetry Wala. It's like that. Or Lucia can be a libro wala, so she's a bookseller. It's like that. Smriti, take us to poetry wala.
Hello, everybody. A warm good evening and namaste to all my co-panelists, fellow panelists, to all the people who've joined in today to hear us and be a part of this panel in the audience. And thank you, Shubhro, for having me on this panel. Poetry Wala is, it began in 2001, actually. Prior to that, we were publishing, we were publishing a small magazine in Marathi called Abhidanantar. Abhidanantar was a magazine which was giving a platform to all the new voices, all the new young voices who were writing in Marathi. And they were writing in a different language, a spoken language. And it was far away from the traditional poetry, which was always in circuit, rather. So for Abhidanantar gave a platform to many young poets. And that time Marathi was the only language we focused on because Hemant, my husband, who is a poet and the co-founder of Paper Wall, he himself writes in Marathi. And Marathi was a language which was easier for us to grasp in terms while editing it. Because we found that there was a scarcity of good editors, proofreaders, translators who would, translate the language properly and get it across into another language. We began in 2001 when we published Hemant's first book of poems in Marathi. It was published by Prabhat Prakashan, and we were not too happy with the quality of the production, basically. So, but there was no option left for us. And there were not many publishers who were ready to give a chance to the first book of a poet. They were not ready to take chances, you know. Anyway, poetry doesn't sell. It doesn't keep the um, the home fires, the kitchen fire running, rather, I would say. So we contemplated, but we published it through Prabhat. And after 2 or 3 years, in 2004, when one of Dilip Chitre, who is one of India's most respected, he's no longer alive, poet, he and his wife very fondly um, gave the name Poetry Wala. They suggested the name Poetry Wala to us, and that is how Poetry Wala was born, rather. So with Poetry Wala, we started publishing poetry in Marathi initially, and then we finally moved on to English poetry, and we have published many English poets till date right now, and we have published more than 126 books of poetry, and more than 56 poets from India and outside India. So it was a long journey, a very tedious one, but a very it gave us a lot of happiness, you know, introducing new voices in English as well as in Marathi poetry in India today. So that is how Poetry Wala came into being.
So, and you publish a lot of other Indian languages in English translation as well. And so what is Poetry Wala's, in this time of COVID, in the pandemic months, how was Poetry Wala's situation, or how is Poetry Wala now in terms of sales, in terms of distribution? And you also, Poetry Wala organized the first ever Bombay Poetry Festival. And so what is the overall scenario in
Right
COVID?
now, during the COVID times, and which are there right now, it was a little difficult for all of us. Mumbai, where we are residing right now, it was our first lockdown was in March. March 18th or something, there was a lockdown, and it kept on, the days kept on increasing, you know, slowly, and the situation worsened. We that time did not have any online sales. Rather, we had closed our shop on Amazon as well as on paperwall.in, that is our online store. So we had closed everything, and we had put up all these things on the social sites or whatever communication which came to people who were interested in buying. So our last dispatch of shipments of books was on March 16th. After that, we didn't open the shop till mid-June, when we began slowly from our website. Because as Lucia mentioned about Amazon, Amazon can get a little difficult at times, you know, especially for vendors who do not use their fulfillment service.
Yes.
Because it is very difficult for, first of all, nobody is ready to sell books of poetry. I mean the stores, the physical stores, because it is not a OTC product or something, you know, it's not like a beauty book or a cookery book or something which can go immediately off the shelf. It is a very tough investment, you know. A bookshop owner has to, because he has to give space to those books for a very long time. So it was very difficult for us. We do not sell our books through many physical stores in India, because Kitab Khana is the only one in Mumbai who has been a very strong supporter of Poetry Wala and has always housed and sold our books terrifically, I must say. Otherwise, most of the bookstores around the country have always returned our shipment back after a month or so. So we began with paperwall.in, that is our website, and we began in Amazon a little later because the services, it was very difficult to courier the books, ship the books, because the courier companies were not working. The infection was on the rise. So it was extremely difficult.
Mhm.
Then we started using Amazon Easy Ship, which is like a boon, because what I noticed in this is that the books get picked up by the Amazon guys, and I found the shipping charges comparatively a little lower than the courier companies. So that became easy. After June 15th, I'm very happy to say that we have got a consistent flow of orders every day. So I'm very grateful to all our buyers, our readers who buy our books and have, who have taken the effort of making a purchase, especially buyers from outside India. And a trend which has been noticed by us is that there has been an immense rise in the sales of books which are in translation, that is from regional language into English.
Mm-hmm.
So I believe translations have picked up, means they are much needed right now.
Mm-hmm.
So it has been a good this thing. We have not got into ebooks as yet, because we feel the physical book is very charming. It's a great feeling to hold a book, as Lucia said, and more than anything which is online, something to feel, to go through the pages, and as Timo said, even for the festivals and events, to smell, the whole this thing, it is a wonderful feeling. But it hasn't been bad. It's been quite good.
So I'll go back to, thank you, Smriti, for this lovely introduction to your endeavors. I will go back to Timo once again. Timo, so you are facing this dilemma between, now my students have started saying online event or offline event. So it has become now, probably in post-COVID scenario, people would talk about this, not a normal event, or to see an online event as something unusual. They would talk about online and offline events. So so what is your, how do you see this digital platforms, all across all these digital platforms, as like the role of these digital platforms in disseminating poetry, in the distribution of poetry, in the spread of poetry? Do you think that you can attract more people through digital platforms?
I think you can get more and a wider audience. This is not new, There had been a pioneer platform in Argentina in 2000. It's already 20 years, no, 2000, in the 90s already. It was called poesia.com, no? Poetry.com. And it started with a very simple platform where they were just putting into HTML code the little poetry books they published in very small editions, like 50, 100, 200 books. And they normally only circulated in a very small area in Buenos Aires or in the cities in the interior, in the province. But they didn't get to Mexico, to Spain. But now with the poems on this platform disseminated to the whole Spanish-speaking country, because the website was so simple. It was only poetry.com, so everyone could go to that platform. And in some way, it was also the success of this platform killed it in the end, because they had so much, you generated so much traffic when the peso was devaluated 10 years ago in the crisis of 99, 2001. The people who administrated that site, one was a poet, Martin Gambarota. He said he couldn't afford the traffic on this platform, so they had to close it. I notice now that there are a lot of new formats. For example, one is Instagram Live. There you have very nice poetry readings exchanges with one, because the screen is divided into two. The screen of a smartphone is divided into two parts, and then you have like the poet and the translator above, or vice versa. So you have a lot of new formats. Also the Instagram poetry, that new young poets are transforming their verses into collages and stuff. I guess we have now a very small, very fast development of these new forms, and we have to evaluate next year what will survive in some way. But I noticed, for example, Zoom is a very good instrument, or Teams, or all these things are very good instruments to work with, yeah? But for the readings, I really prefer more focused platforms like StreamYard, for example. Mm-hmm. Even Facebook is possible, but it's very difficult, because if you do something on Facebook, you need another software to make like a broadcasting studio. This is for some poets very difficult to realize. But if you do so, you have a lot of more facilities. You can show more things, you can put videos, you can put subtitles and all these kind of things. We will, I guess, like the pandemic situation is actually developing. We have to just adopt these new media, like we started with the radio and the television. I don't think that these kind of technical new medias will stop after the pandemic, if there is an after the pandemic and not with the pandemic. On the other hand, you have to think that there are new facilities. For example, okay, it was always difficult to get money for a poetry festival, to finance the flights. I guess now it will be even more difficult to get that money, because everyone say, hey, he will come for 15 minutes reading or 20 minutes reading. Why didn't you realize it with a conference, electronic conference? But on the other hand, I noticed that there have been reporting to me from a lot of poets I knew that they were doing workshops through Zoom with fantastic poets all over the world. And this is a very exceptional thing. And this is really new, that you could do a workshop in the morning in Buenos Aires and in the afternoon in China, yeah, with the poets. There are some new facilities, and I don't think that we have to be only pessimistic about it, but we have, I also noticed that 30 years ago, we said, when you publish something on internet, it will be there forever. Yeah? And that's not true. There are a lot of publication, poems, translation, even that they were published on internet 20 years ago, and no one has an archive of them. They vanished away, yeah, like the poetry.com site. And we also have to think about the digital archives, and we have to register all these things in our libraries, yeah. And we have to think about how can we create these archives, because they will accumulate in YouTube or something like that. But then you have this problem of the algorithm or not, you can't find these things. Yeah? You have also to think about this instance. And for example, cultural institutions like the Instituto Cervantes, they should think about that also, just to maintain, to conserve, to preserve all these cultural emanations, not only of pandemic times.
Mhm. Yeah, that's a lovely proposal. Just like archival is a big issue. So how are the publishers coping with this scenario? Lucia, I would come back to you with the same question. That in as you talked about, like you moved to ebooks. So do you feel more optimistic about the situation, or how do you?
No, no. No, I don't know if optimistic, but we are trying. We are trying to be optimistic. That's well, now there is kind of a force, or like something you have to push now. And before, maybe it was not very, we were not very conscious about it. And I guess right now our biggest challenge is to keep up with the uh, to give the importance to this, to poetry, to books, to art, because when there is a crisis, a pandemic, everything sums up to survival, no? Like health. Everybody needs to be alive and well, and even mentally well. So how do you go from surviving to give importance to art? You know that it's a big jump. So we are trying to see as books and making books and making and still saying yes to new books as an act also of survival in a way. Like from the because the human being is not only like eating and sleeping and being well. So in a way we're trying to make this balance of yes, maintaining the publishing house, but also as seen as an act of resistance, of still doing this work for also new voices, like Smutri said. As and that also can give you up, like can cheer you up and give you a lift from this very hard times, I guess.
And Smriti, same question.
As of now, Poetry Wala, we have not done any activity on Instagram nor on Facebook, because from March we are still in a state of lockdown. Though the lockdown has been lifted, we are still in a state of lockdown. There's a lot of, as Lucia said, this survival takes center stage. You know, your family, to maintain that, and plus, to do your office work, it's a big struggle. But then you have to cope with it right now. We have let it be as it is. My take on social platforms is that Instagram, though it is is a excellent medium, and it is used by the young people a lot. So it is a good way to get in touch, to connect with the youngsters. But my only the video streaming is great. You can have a video uploaded of any duration on IGTV, and but the thing is, there are a lot of ads which are, since it's a medium which is uh, doing so well. It is doing so well with everybody. Everybody is onto it. So definitely, the advertisements which keep on popping up during your Insta feed. So your own Insta feed gets flooded. And with all these ads happening, your feed, which is organic, gets lost. So that is one big issue with social platforms, So you have to be really at it, you know. So that is one thing, and this too shall pass, I guess.
Yeah, so I was just about to ask you, to all three of you, what are your, so could you see anything, any post-COVID situation? So what are your plans for the post-COVID situation? Could you foresee it?
That's to me, Shubhra.
Yeah, to all of you, to all three of you. Any plan?
Um, we are doing. We've published 3 books. We our main imprint, that is Paperwall. The Paperwall, we've got into, yes, we've got into. We've begun publishing biographies right now, and
Okay.
our first biography will be out by the end of by November first week. We are looking forward to establishing our imprint, which is going to be dedicated to children. It is called IMLI, which means tamarind in English. And the most important project which we are looking forward to is the Poetry Wala Foundation, which you two are a part of. Um, I'm very happy to share this with all of you and the audience that the Poetry Wala Foundation has got registered on the 13th of this month. So we are looking to great collaborations with poets, with institutions all around the world, so that regional languages, there's some fantastic translations which can come up, and we can get the world a little more closer and make it a little more beautiful with poetry. So a lot of new voices. We are going to, as Timo said, archiving things. So a lot of things, that archive portal it's going to be established so that it can help students who are doing their PhD in literature, researchers. So it is a very monumental and a very ambitious project, but yes, we are looking forward to it. It's going to be exciting.
Yeah. Shubhra,
Yeah.
I think we have to, there are some archives already. You know, there is a very good dynamic archive with poetry, which is called Lyric Line, from the House of Poetry of Berlin. They are doing, they register the voices of the poets. It's not the video, but it's the audio recording. And we always send some poets from Latinale to them, and they make the recordings and they put it online. And I guess we should think in some way, how can we deal with that situation? Smruti depicted now that we have like this stream, this Instagram stream, but you have advertisement all the time, and the internet, what was before like a very open space, you could publish blogs and stuff. Like a lot of these things, this open internet space disappeared and transformed into a closed space. You have to register, you have to see all these ads, you have to pay to get content without ads or more and deeper content. And there's only one website of these most clicked websites in the world which is free of this kind of thing, which is Wikipedia, you know. But in some way we need also a kind of infrastructure, digital infrastructure to exchange culture. Yeah, and that it doesn't depend on the social media. And we should think in something like a linking of all these archives and festivals, and also the editing houses which are producing all these kind of books and publications. And it's like the old question between, should we have private sponsoring of roads or public sponsoring, or should we have private hospitals or public hospitals? I think we should need also in the digital space a public infrastructure. It's for everyone is clear that we need a opera house, and that the German government has to pay for the opera house. But the German government doesn't pay for these digital structure. They leave it all to these kind of few multinational firms who are not interested really in the contents, but in the data. And yeah, I think this, linking it from Germany to India and also to South America, this could be a first step to think about a global, how you say, net, to be the first step to a digital structure and
maybe a duty of the post-COVID world.
Yeah, I guess that's more than ever necessary. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Lucia.
Well, I think, well, there's no way returning back to where we were. And from now on, we have to be at least more conscious about our work, of course, in the internet and our webpage and the social media, and have a sort of strategy to give the right information for the people, because maybe there's not that big audience, but there are 2 or 3 persons there who are waiting for you to say something or to publish something to go get that book or to listen to that conversation. In terms of the publisher, we are really trying to fulfill the agreements made before COVID, and it has slowed down our pace, all of this, but we're still like pushing to it to happen, even if it has to take us to 2021 and later. So we are trying to make like a balance of not being totally in the web, in the ebooks, in the social media, but yes, to have a place there and to have a sort of strategy and redefine it maybe with experience, and also to still make our books physically and still try to promote them in libraries and still make our presence material. So it's going to be, I think, an experience of many months to readjust our ways of being in both places and see in which one needs more time and money or our presence, and in what time we need to be more on the other side, just to be very like open and conscious about it.
Mm-hmm. All right. Sounds great. So now we are coming to the last part of the program. I would like to open the floor. I think now I should open the floor to the public, and they can, if to the others, if they have some questions to ask to our panelists. Since we are in a very small group, so everybody can open their camera as well, I believe. If somebody has some questions.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody has asked anything. So at the end, I would talk about our festival a little, about IBAV, about Ibero-American Voices. So this is a second year, but the thing is, in the second year, we are facing already this problem. But yes, since Timo said, it was really difficult to find funding for the air tickets of our participants. Since we are in India, far away from South America, and so it was even more difficult to find the organizations to get involved in the funding issues. Now I think it would be more difficult after this scenario, to take. Like last year, we can remember. I can remember that last year we had an issue with, like, we had a conversation with one of the embassies. They proposed a video conference event, and we said no, we cannot have a video conference in the festival. We would like to have the boat. Now this year, look at us, we are having all the participants in video conference. So things have changed completely. And next year, if it goes like this, I don't know where we would land up. But still, it's just, for us, this experience, as Timo said, it is not so bad so far, because we had more. We can have more people from different continents altogether, and we have audiences from other countries and other places. So it is overall, it is a lovely experience. It's not that bad the way we started. Let's hope for a better next year, so we can have all these things together, and we can have the smell of coffee with the boards here and all the participants. So Dhruv has opened a. Do you have any question, Dhruv?
Yes, to all the panelists. How difficult it is to publish the poetry which is against the political agenda of the country? Nowadays, so much chaos in our country, also in lots of the other countries also going on fight. But what I found is reading the poetry or like writing the poetry for the political situation gives a much more wider knowledge, or like a wider sense of thoughts to the other people. So is it found like very difficult to in other countries also to publish the poetry which is against the political agenda of the country?
Oh, you want to say political agenda of the government?
Yes.
All the political parties. We must not get confused between the country and the political parties. That's very important. Yes.
Well,
yes, Lucia, please. In Mexico, what's the situation in Mexico?
Yeah, in Mexico, I guess it's still very difficult to make a book that really threatens the government. I guess if you're a big writer with a big name and you do that, you can make that happen. But when you are a new voice and you have a first book or a second book, or even if you're not, if you already have some books and you're publishing another one that threatens what López Obrador, which is our president, says, well, he won't even notice, I think. But maybe if you are that Elena Poniatowska, which is a writer of 90 something years, and she's a very, very big writer, well, maybe if she says something and she published a book, well, she will get the government attention and maybe make some polemic about it. I don't know how it does it work in Bombay or in Germany.
In Germany, nobody cares. Please, Timo.
Do you hear me? Yeah.
Yes.
There was a very known German poet and novelist, which had also written a book about India, about his experience in India, a very polemic one. And one of his last publications was a poem criticizing the Israeli occupation of Palestine.
Mm-hmm.
And really, this generated a big shitstorm in some way. Everyone was against him, and it was also indeed a very bad poem. He could only publish in the very sold newspaper because he was Günter Grass, you know. But normally, it is like you said, or that poetry in some way has not that political relevance in some way like it had in the time of medieval or something like that. But probably hip hop music now is
yes.
or in that way, if they have some lyrics, they can provocate a scandal. They can, and then there is a kind of public discussion about it. But normally the government doesn't talk about what is published in arts or in the press. So they prefer not to speak about that.
And Günter Grass was again very much criticized about his biography, about his autobiography, because of his Nazi past and then stuff like that. So Günter Grass can be, but a new writer, no, I don't know. Smriti, what's your take? Because you are in one of the most volatile states of India.
Yes, yes, it is extremely difficult to publish political poetry, because you don't, sometimes it happens, that the readers construe things very differently from what actually the poet wants to say. So it is very difficult to give an explanation to each and everyone and to a crowd who is just not ready to listen. So it is a very difficult situation for us at Poetry Wala. We do not take money from the poets for publishing their books. So we are a little more stringent, strict, with the choices we make. We have to really like the work so that, we can publish it. The books that we don't like, it doesn't mean that they are bad, but that's just our perspective. We have to like it enough to publish it. But political poetry is a very difficult thing to publish right now, because
Right now in India, anything is difficult.
Anything is difficult. You cannot have a conversation or an interaction, without being brutal with your words, with your language, in your actions. So, even if you publish, the uproar, if it takes place, if it happens, people actually read it and understand, or whatever. If there is a reaction and a wrong one, it goes to something else, to a different level. The poetry is left behind, and it jumps onto different platforms, kind of a thing, different subjects. So it is, till as of now, it's a no.
It happens to the painters, as the known painters. We all know that M.F. Hussain had to die in Oman, and who lived all his life, and he's the greatest, probably one of the greatest painters that India has ever produced, and he had to go to exile just because he is a Muslim. So that's a different issue altogether. So anyway, it's in India, the situation is getting difficult day by day, and I must not say anything else because I live in a state which is governed by religious fanatics. And it's no, I live in Uttar Pradesh. I live in UP, which is governed by religious fanatics. So I live in the outskirts of Delhi, which falls in the state of UP. So I should not say anything. Somebody might hear us and just can lynch me anytime. Anyway,
But I
Yes.
was going to say that the person that writes is always a politic person, so in a way, whatever he or she writes is going to be social, political, and human, emotional. So the political element is always there.
It is. So we have come to an end of this discussion, which could have been endless almost, because they could have spoken all through the evening here in India, and afternoon in Germany, and morning in Mexico. And I would like to thank to all of you. I would like to thank Instituto Cervantes for giving us the opportunity to do this program, to do this poetry festival. I would like to thank our director Oscar Pujol, our And we'd like to, and Marti Vassets, the cultural manager of Instituto Cervantes, to Santiago Ruiz Sanchez, the cultural attaché of the Embassy of Mexico, and Garima Pant, his assistant. She's not here right now. And I must remind all of you that next week on Friday, 6th of November, we have a live conversation, an interview with David Huerta, a great Mexican poet, at 6:30 p.m. India time. And I would request all of you to join us for that evening, and that interview would also be conducted in English. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Shubro.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Timo, Shmutri, Subro, everybody. Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Bye-bye.
Mhm.